Welcome to Tall Talk Times podcast, the podcast made by beautifully tall people.
For beautifully tall people.
I'm Letty Saunders.
And I'm Tom Garner.
Welcome to Letty's Tall Chats, and today we have Angelina Palova with us. Hi, Angelina.
Hi, Letty. Thank you for having me here.
It's great to have you here, Angelina.
Great to be here.
Oh. Now, for those of you listeners that don't know who Angelina is 6'4", and she's written a book, and she has a long-standing tall blog. 10 years now?
10 years, yes.
You must be awfully
Amazingly.
proud. Yeah.
I don't know how that happened. So
Well, it's still going, and it's
still going.
a great success. So for listeners that haven't seen your Not Another Tall blog, what would they see when they logged on?
They would probably see a bit of everything. That's why it's called Not Another Tall Blog. At the time when I started blogging, there were so many different blogs, tall blogs, and they were all pretty much the same.
Okay.
Talking about the same stuff and just doing some fashion reviews. And I decided to make a point that my height doesn't define me, so I may be tall, but I am a writer who likes to write about everything, and I've got my own interests. And just because I'm tall, I don't want to talk just about that. And I write obviously about being tall, with various bits of advice, whether it's emotional support or psychological or just finding resources. Fashion at some point was played quite a major part in the blog. I used to get freebies from different tall brands, and I was helping with their campaigns. And I was doing reviews. A couple of them sent me one of them sent me a whole collection.
Wow.
Back in 2016.
That must mean that you have some sway.
Yes, well, I hope so. And,
But
at some point I just got too busy with life, and I focused more on supporting people just with the psychological side of things, how to be a parent of tall children.
Yeah.
Every so often I would get an email from readers, so some of them were sharing just feedback, others were asking for information. There was a lady who was looking for resources for tall maternity clothes.
Wow. Yeah, tall maternity.
Yeah.
A whole new line there.
Yeah. Obviously the show business is quite a serious thing because it was at least difficult to source shoes, so I was looking for resources, and a couple of posts focused on that.
So you covered quite a lot there, but so just off air, we were talking about how it's changed there are a lot more resources now than, we're both women over 40.
Well, no one knows that.
Okay, rewind. We're both women
of the age of 21.
over the age of
Multiplied
21.
a couple of times.
Yeah, okay. So the tall young ladies today, I think they have a lot more choice than when we were their age.
Yes.
You know, I can remember having to wear the ugliest shoes.
Did you actually wear women's shoes?
No, I did until I got up over a size 9. Size 9 was the cutoff, but really they were a size 8 because they were so pointy. You know, so anything over a size 8 was an issue.
Well, I'm a size European 44, which is 10. At the time when I was growing up, I was wearing a 41.
Ow, yes, and I can recall.
And I don't really know how I've done that, but that was the biggest shoes you could ever find. And I was living in men's shoes, which obviously weren't particularly pretty. And if I wanted to put a skirt on, I had a really tough choice. What do I wear? So I had to find some brogue shoes or some black shoes which sort of look okay with a skirt, but it was just ugly.
And it doesn't do your sense of confidence and well-being any good, really, does it?
Confidence? What is confidence?
Mm-hmm.
So, my self-esteem was just non-existent.
So that's quite a journey for you.
It has been quite a journey. It took me about 40 years to actually accept my height, and I still can't say I like it. So, but I've accepted it, and I'm embracing it, and I'm seeing it as a positive thing rather than negative.
Because we're helping other people.
Because that's what you do. That's what you're given in life, and you've got to just accept it and make the best of it. And tall is beautiful.
Yeah.
So over the years, I've learned that actually tall women seen as something amazing. But at the time when I was growing up, I was just a freak, and I was a magnet for short, married, old, and all sorts of stuff. And remember in the 80s, or maybe, I don't know whether there was a fashion here, but in Bulgaria there was this wave at some point, probably late 80s or early 90s. There were these leggings which were very shiny.
Shiny leggings.
So, and somehow I managed to source a pair which was long enough for my legs, which 36 inch.
Same here.
Yeah, and at that time I was as skinny and lean as it goes. So I had no life basically. I had no boyfriend. After work I was going to the gym every night, pumping serious weights. Yeah, there was no fat at all on me. So I decided to go out, and so the high street is like probably 3 or 4 miles long, and everyone in the evening used to go out just to mingle.
Yeah.
So once I went out with that pair of leggings, and I just wanted to disappear. I just wanted for the earth to swallow me.
Why?
I was turning heads like crazy. Really, really uncomfortable.
Okay.
People were just staring at me. So as if I wasn't tall enough.
But because you're beautifully tall, and you will obviously looked fantastic.
Yeah, but the reason why I put those bloody leggings on wasn't to attract attention. It was just, they're fashionable and they fit me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. Okay, that turns on its head. So no thanks.
That's brilliant. So yeah, you can't be a wallflower when you're 6'4", can you?
Not really, no.
We can't hide. So I either don't go out, or when I go out, you have to expect some attention. Both negative.
You get the attention whether you want it or not. So.
Yeah, you do. And it's different for women than men, because stereotypically, a man is a winner if he's tall, whereas women are little tinies, stereotypically. But we're beautifully tall. We can own this.
Yes, yeah, of course, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But so the blog's been going for 10 years. That's one brilliant achievement, Angelina.
Well, I must say in the past couple of years I haven't been particularly active, but I still post on it. And the amazing thing is I'm still getting hits, probably not as many as I used to when I was regularly writing, but I think the blog now has got quite a established Google presence. I did have someone doing my SEO years ago. So the one thing I learned is the longer you are online, the more eventually hits you get in. Yeah, the better it becomes. So
see, listeners, I'm learning all the time. All the time. That's great. Thank you. But you've probably not been quite as active on Not Another Tool blog because you've written a book.
Yes, probably that may be one of the reasons, yes. It takes some time and effort to write a book, so yes.
And listeners, I have the book here, A Tall Woman of Many Talents. Now, I don't care, really, whether you like or you dislike this book, and I'll tell you why, Angelina. Because you have got off your backside and you have written a book.
Apparently, so the lady, my book marketing coach, posted this set of statistics. So out of the population of the earth, so many whatever percentage of people want to write a book, whatever percentage of people do actually start, and only about 6% of the population write and publish a book. So I think that's probably...
I think we could probably break that down.
That could be my positive...
But no, because, I'm really proud that you have written a book.
Thank you.
You should be proud of yourself. Because, I'm one of those people that thought, I've got quite a few anecdotes. I should probably write a book. And other things have happened and I haven't written a book. So I'm going to read a couple of passages, if I may.
Of course, yeah.
So a couple that I found here that I like. After all these years, I still suffer the damage caused by my height. I know it's all in my mind. I keep on top of the latest body confidence trends and do my best to spread positivity. Hashtag love your body and all that stuff. But actually, deep inside, I am still the same girl I was 40-ish years ago. The tallest girl in the world, and I'm not enjoying it. Not a single bit. I mean, hairs have just gone up on my arm. Look at that.
When you read it, it sounds interesting. Yeah.
You can really feel that emotion in that paragraph. Yeah.
And that's only in the first, how many pages of the book?
That's page 19, listeners.
Yeah, so that's how it starts. It's not about not liking your height. Oh.
Yeah. And then if I go on to another paragraph here, later in the book, a lot later in the book, because it is a journey. Page 165. I did have a smashing body. I just didn't know it. I had a great personality for my age, but I didn't know that either. I thought of myself as a geek. I was too shy and too busy being tall. This is why I must bring my daughter up differently. She should know that she is amazing as she is. If she wants to be with someone, they don't have to be as tall as her. I have to help her be different from me. I need to fix what my mum did not for me. And that makes me very sad because my mum, she came up with that beautifully tall mantra that we use.
Yeah, I heard that on your podcast. That's amazing.
Thank you. And, you know, for you to know that stops, for your daughter, empowerment, positivity. And that's basically why I've invited you here on the podcast, because we have those similar interests. We align.
And share the values.
Yeah. Not Another Tall Blog is the blog, and A Tall Woman of Many Talents, what it's like to be a modern-day Amazon woman. Yeah, I like this. Did you play basketball? And what's the weather like up there? How many times do you think you've heard that, right?
Oh, I don't know. Millions?
Millions of times. But the passage about, if you fall in love, I know that you're in love with a tall man. And
may I correct you? Taller
man. Yeah.
Yes.
The fact that you have a taller than you partner is brilliant.
I think that's a bonus.
It is a bonus, but it doesn't preclude love with those that aren't quite as tall as us.
There is a whole chapter in the book, or probably two of them, dedicated to dating challenges for a tall woman, and particularly about dating shorter men. So you're probably familiar with all those guys on Facebook and Instagram and everywhere who keep bombarding you with messages saying, "Oh, am I too short for you?" So you're 6'4", I'm 5'8". Is that too short? Or another one, I'm 6 foot. Would you date me? I'm with someone else. I'm not interested. Yeah, but still, is that too short for you? Yeah, it is. Yes, but. Yes, but. Okay. So
I like the answer. You're tall enough. You're just a creep. I don't say that. I just don't answer. Because then, opening up a whole tin of worms there, or a can of worms. But no, yeah, you may be tall enough. You're just a creep.
Well, one thing which I want to make clear, so the book is very personal, which is why it took me 2 years to actually get the courage to put it out there on Amazon. But it is not just about my life. So a lot of it is about me and my own personal experience.
Yeah.
However, so that was probably late 2019 when I started thinking about writing the book. I reached out on the blog page to tall women, asking them for any examples and thoughts about what they do not like about their height.
Okay.
And the response was amazing. I posted it in all the tall groups, so I got lots and lots of comments and ideas. And I just picked the ones which were most relevant. So a lot of the episodes there, some of them which are quite drastic maybe, they're actually real life stories, just not mine. And at the end of the book, there is a list of acknowledgements. So some of my followers will find their names there.
That's
So it's
really
representative, I think, of the tall women as a section of the population. So it's not just about me.
brilliant. Yeah. See? Angelina. Not completely self-promotion. Something we both come under criticism for. It's not about us. It's about
No, it's
the whole
about
thing.
it's about the message
Yeah.
we're getting across. And the more of us talk about the same thing, the more eventually people will get the idea that it's not okay to ask you, oh, how tall are you? Or to say, oh, wow, you're tall. Yeah, I didn't know that, did I? So why do I say, yeah, you're too short, you're too fat? No, I don't. So just because I'm too tall, that doesn't
You're not
give
too
you...
tall, Angelina.
Well, yeah, just because I'm normal height and you're too short, that doesn't give you the permission to just stop me in the street and talk to me about that.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Or they ask your height or your shoe size or, you know, yeah. So, there are negatives, but there's a positive last night. I was wearing my heels. We were doing the Tool Talk Times Celebrating Height Monthly Social in London at the Phoenix Victoria last night.
I would love to come and join you one evening.
Yeah. There's going to be more events coming up. Lots more fun events. And, we're all the same height. In fact, Nat said, we need a short person to stand in front of us. So there's some relevance because we all look, the same kind of height.
Well, I was looking at the pictures you put up last week from Belfast.
Oh, yeah.
Of 3 gorgeously tall men.
Yeah.
I know them, so that I know how. So they're like 6'7", 6'8".
Yeah.
So I knew they were tall. But if you just look at the picture, you're like, just 3 guys. You can't even
but they
guess they're so tall.
Exactly.
So, yeah, you need a point of reference somewhere, maybe a door frame or something, or a lamppost.
They are just 3 guys, 3 beautifully tall guys. That would be Oscar and Stuart. And then the lovely Northern Irish Tom.
Yeah, I didn't know him, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
But last night I was wearing my 3-inch heels, walking precariously up the stairs trying to find the restroom. And this guy stopped and he was amazed. And I thought, oh, here we go. He's going to say something about my height. And he didn't. He just said, wow, you're beautiful.
Oh, that's nice.
I said, thank you.
That's nice.
Where are the ladies? And he was just completely, and he didn't comment on my height at all. And when we're in a group together, nobody comments on a height.
Well, of course, because that's normal.
Yeah, because we're a whole group, rather than just picking off, it's no easy pickings. There's the tall one standing out. School photographs. There I was at the back.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's one thing which always gets me. Why did they stand us at the back rather than just get us to sit at the front? Then we wouldn't be really standing out of the whole group.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't know.
Something for anyone in education out there. When you're taking a photograph, any group photographs, let's do what Angelina suggests. Get the tall person a chair, sit them at the front, and be a bit more inclusive, please. Yeah?
Please, yeah, that would be good.
Yeah. Okay, so we've covered on growing up and what it was like for you.
A little bit, yeah. We can talk about it all day, yes.
We can. Yeah. So I was going to ask you, what did you see a turning point? And when you came over to the UK, was there an awful lot of difference? As resources for tall women?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Really?
So I spent 17 years of so I came here in October 2000 and I lived for 17 years in Colchester, which is in Essex on the east side.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to have a long-tall Sally's shop.
Oh, the shop, the Mecca that was.
That was heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So going to the shop and not just finding a pair of jeans which fits you. No, there is a whole rack of them, all different.
Did you burst into tears the first time you saw it?
No, my jaw just dropped to the floor and I was like, wow. Whenever they had the sales on, I would stack like a full stack of clothes, like 10, 15 items in the changing room, and sometimes come out with nothing just because it didn't really fit me very well. I didn't like how it sat on me.
Choice.
And I was like, wow, Well, now that Long Tall Sally and everything is gone,
It's
I
all
mean,
online.
from the actual shop, it's like a sport. You just gamble. Okay, is that going to fit me? Is it not? And then you wait for a few days, and then it's the disappointment. It's not.
Yeah,
it
but
doesn't
you see,
really.
how fab would it be? I've said this to Lisa Daniels, who've been on the previous podcast. How fab would it be, Angelina, if we could go shopping together to a tool shop, bring back Long Tall Sally stores, is what I say.
Please, that was. I love to go to London just for the Long Tall Sally shop.
We could have lunch at Covent Garden, have a couple of drinks, do the whole Sex and the City thing.
The shoe shops in Chiltern Street.
Oh yeah,
they're still there.
I know. I used to go up there at lunchtime when I worked in London before I had my beautiful boys. And I would say I need an extra long lunchtime on Thursday.
A couple of hours probably.
Yeah. And I used to buy, I'll have those shoes, and I'll have those shoes, and I'll have those shoes. Mm-hmm.
Do you know that there is a large shoe shop in our neck of the woods here in Hungerford?
No, really?
Yeah. I forgot what it's called, but I saw it on one of the Facebook pages and I made a mental note.
Okay. Well, we will need to find that out and put it in the blurb, as I like to call it, the description. And I would definitely check that one out.
It's not too far away from us. So.
I tend to live in Converse or one or two pairs of painful heels, which so when we were at Belfast, couldn't possibly walk in these little peep-toe kitten heels of 3 inches. There was no way. Had to get a cab. Had to. When we got there, I met up with the Irish tall ladies group, the Glamazons, came up. So there we are at the Clothier in Belfast, me tottering in, getting out the cab. And after a couple of drinks, remarkably able to walk in them. It's like magic.
Amazing. I wouldn't be able to do that.
And then later on in the evening, there was some dancing. And
did you take the shoes off?
No. I wish I had.
Oh, okay.
It was so sore. My feet are so sore. I have blisters where I didn't know you could get blisters on feet.
But you enjoyed the dance?
I did. It was amazing. Beautifully tall men. The same, looking up to them. And I was wearing heels. That was special.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't it?
I love that, yeah.
So, and there are a lot of, obviously, Northern Irish people don't tend to be the tallest people from that limited experience.
Yeah, from what I've heard, it's the Netherlands, which is probably the tallest nation.
Right, so my heels and I need to go over to the Netherlands then.
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
In Germany.
Have you been?
No. So one of my Facebook friends runs a shop, an actual physical shop in Germany, in Hamburg. I love Toll. There is also a lady in Riga, in Latvia. She's got a shop for big shoes, large shoes.
I have just...
Apavi 40 plus.
Yeah, she's just done a post and I've suggested to her that she put some English links in because, that would be a nice...
I actually bought a pair of walking shoes from her recently.
Ah.
So
nice.
Good. Yeah, very nice. Yeah.
Good quality.
Very comfortable. Very good. Yes.
Excellent.
She actually sells the book on her website in her shop as well. So
there's lots of fabulous tool enterprise out there.
There are. It's about finding them.
Yeah. So we've got the lady from Latvia, Riga. So that's on Tool Talk Times as a resource. She's just put a post up there. And we need to probably go over there, buy some shoes, and shove it all over Instagram.
Ooh, I would love that.
Yeah, if we can't, okay, we'll do London first and Chiltern Street. Have a drink. We'll save up. Have a drink, then go and get some feet. Maybe an afternoon tea.
Well, it's usually the January sales, which are the bigger ones. So
okay.
Food for thought next January.
January 2025. Chiltern Street, watch out. We won't tell anyone when, otherwise there's going to be loads of people turning up.
With celebrities, of course.
Hey, it will start somewhere. But that's the thing, isn't it? We're not self-promoting. We're promoting the support network for beautifully tall women and men. But definitely. Yeah.
What I call the tall cause.
The tall cause.
Yeah.
Because it is different. So I heard I heard on the radio the other day, is there a short club? If you want to make a short club, you go ahead. And yes, there is a short club. But, we're not saying that people who are not tall are any less worthy. It's just that we want to hang out with other tall people occasionally.
Mm. So one of my real-life tall friends said to me a few months ago that there is a book waiting to be written in all of us. So each one of us have had our struggles, but we've all come through to the other end.
Yeah.
One of us has esteems issues. Another one has got extra chromosome, like an extra male chromosome. Another one has got an extra female chromosome. Another one has got a marathon syndrome.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember what the other syndromes are. But we're all, as you say, beautifully tall.
Mm.
And we're not freaks.
No.
As opposed to what the general public sometimes thinks. So if we don't support each other in our journeys, no one else will.
No, absolutely. Who else understands as well as you and me? Yeah,
that's why I started the blog, and that's why I wrote the book, just so it's out there for people to see. Interestingly enough, so some of the reviews posted on Amazon are from tall people, so that's very reassuring, saying, such a good book. If I read this when I was younger, that would have helped with my self-esteem. Or someone else saying, so much to relate to. But interestingly enough, more than half of them are short people who still found something to relate to. So I wrote the book obviously about tall people's struggles, but the way I wrote it was generally about anyone who feels different in any way and doesn't want to stand out from the crowd and not being able to fit in. I actually cried. I had an email a few months ago from a reader who is about 4 foot something.
Wow. So
like really, really short. And he wrote my book. He read my book and it changed his life. So the letter is on the blog and he gave me permission to post it. Literally, I haven't changed a word. How life-changing it was for him.
You're inspirational, Angelina.
That really made me very emotional. And I thought if one person manages to find a way forward because they read this book, this is why I wrote it.
Well, there you go. I mean, see, we're again mentioning events. And when I put an event up, if only a few people turn up, it doesn't matter. Mm. If in London it tends to be like 20, 30 people.
Exactly.
But
there was a certain meeting in Bath which you organized.
There were only two people.
There was only two people who attended. It was just me and a gorgeously tall man, and that gorgeously tall man is my boyfriend now. So
I so love that.
So you're such a matchmaker.
Oh yeah, I've already got plans on the next couple. Matchmake. But you see, by setting the events up, people can meet organically.
Yes, well, I didn't go there to find a boyfriend.
You just came out to hang out with tall people.
Yeah, I actually had my daughter with me, so we just had a nice day out. Yeah, not so nice in terms of the
weather.
City. Yeah, it was. Don't go to Bath when it's busy. So
Christmas market, Bath. Be prepared for crowds.
Yes, you need to elbow your way through the crowd.
Angelina doesn't like crowds.
Well,
not that many.
I wonder why.
There's so many. But no, so if just a couple of people turn up, look what can happen. Mm. You know, it can mean the world to 1-2 people.
Or you can just make a friend, wife. Yeah,
make a friend.
And they've got the same values and the same struggles as you. So,
and if the bottom line is you just have a beautifully tall, fun time, that's great too. Mm. So we're going to wrap this up now because this is part 1 of my tall chats with Angelina, who I hope will come back again.
Very happily.
Yeah. We'll get somebody else driving. I'll make sure one of the boys are here to run you around, and then we can have those espresso martinis that my son is so good at making.
Yes, please.
But we did have a nice coffee and some homemade scones.
And that was very amazing, so thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Really welcome. So, Angelina Pelova, the author of Not Another Tall blog, and also the author of A Tall Woman of Many Talents. Thank you for joining on Tall Talk Times podcast today. You've been an absolute pleasure and an inspiration. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Letty, and you too, because your podcast is amazing and it is a pioneering idea. So please keep doing that.
Thanks, Angelina. Okay. Bye, guys. So, Tom, that was Angelina.
Well, she was great, wasn't she? Yeah, I think I'll definitely go out and buy a copy of her book. That's for a tall person like me. It'll really help to get another person's perspective,
Good.
particularly in print.
Yes,
Yeah,
in a book.
yeah.
I still like reading a book. Do you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us spend so much time on our phones, and I find myself on my phone for hours on end without realizing it and thinking, "Blimey, I remember books. They were good, weren't they?"
Yeah.
I've got I've got lots of books in my house.
Yeah.
So I should just pick them up. There's something nice about simply turning a page and all that. It sounds simple, but it is a really good thing to do. So yeah, listeners, do go out and buy Angelina's book. It's brilliant.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, thank you, Tom, for your Giants of History and for joining me hosting this week. And
You're welcome.
It's been another good one. I do enjoy getting into our stride on season 2.
Yes, we're doing very well in season 2. And thank you, Letty, for being the talented sound engineer and interviewer. You're doing a great job.
Oh, bless you. Tom Garner's Giants of History.
Hello. So yes, welcome to Giants of History. And this week we are going to early 20th century Russia, no less, a very dramatic time in history. And our Giant of History this week is Grand Duke Nicholas Nikolaevich of Russia. Now, Letty, I assume that he's probably not on your radar, unless I'm mistaken.
No. I know nothing about this Grand Duke. Not that I know anything about any other Grand Duke, of course. But please do educate me, Tom.
So, Grand Duke Nicholas is an important historical figure in Russian history. So he's born in 1856 in St. Petersburg, and he's the grandson of Tsar Nicholas I of Russia. And he's also a first cousin once removed of Tsar Nicholas II, the last Russian emperor. Now, for our purposes, Grand Duke Nicholas grew up to be very tall at 6'6". So that's 198 centimeters.
6'6".
Yeah, 6'6".
Beautifully tall.
Beautifully tall. Now, I should say that he's very tall, but great height ran in the Romanov family. So he's part of the Romanov dynasty. And as we discussed in episode 5, Nicholas's ancestor, Tsar Peter the Great, was 6'8", while his first cousin, Tsar Alexander III, was approximately 6'3" or 6'4". So having a tall man in the Romanov dynasty was not unprecedented. So Grand Duke Nicholas was given a military education and was commissioned into the Imperial Russian Army in 1873. He first served as a staff officer during the Russian-Turkish War of 1877 to 78, and he worked his way through the ranks. I say worked his way, he's a high aristocrat, he didn't really need to work that hard. And these sort of problems will emerge later on, as we shall see. He was known as a tough commander, but he was respected by his troops. And he was also highly religious and was known to pray several times a day. Now, as I've said before, he was the first cousin once removed to Nicholas II. Grand Duke Nicholas was close to Nicholas II. They were good friends. And because they had the same first name, they were given nicknames by their family. Grand Duke Nicholas was informally known as Nikolasha, but he was also referred to as Nicholas the Tall. Meanwhile, the Tsar, the Emperor of all the Russias, Nicholas II, he was nicknamed Nicholas the Short. So that was how so that brought him down a peg or two compared to his cousin.
Yeah.
So there you go, height over majesty, so to speak. So Grand Duke Nicholas first came to real prominence during the Russian Revolution of 1905. So this precedes the 1917 revolution. And in 1905, Tsar Nicholas presided over a country that was falling into disorder with the future of the Romanov dynasty at stake. The Tsar was given the choice by his prime minister, Sergei Witte, to either accept political reform or impose a military dictatorship. So Tsar Nicholas asked his cousin, Grand Duke Nicholas, to become a military dictator because he had support in the Russian army. The Duke refused, and in front of the emperor, he drew his pistol and threatened to shoot himself if the Tsar did not accept reform.
Okay.
Now, because they were, which is a bit extreme.
Yeah.
Now, because they were friends and family, this act forced Tsar Nicholas to accept reforms, such as a more powerful parliament, which is in Russia known as the Duma. Fast forward 9 years, when World War I broke out in 1914, Grand Duke Nicholas was appointed as the supreme commander of the Russian army, despite having never commanded armies in the field before. Now, he had spent all his life on active service, but the appointment was overwhelming to him. I found a quote where it's written that on receipt of the imperial order, Grand Duke Nicholas spent much of his time crying because he did not know how to approach his new duties. I mean, it's quite something to see a man cry, but never mind a big man. It must have been quite I can imagine it would be overwhelming. If you're suddenly in charge of an exceptionally large armed force, I wouldn't know what to do.
No, that's exactly the word, isn't it? Overwhelm.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, talk about stress, blimey. But Nicholas is the commander-in-chief of the Russian army for the first couple of years of the war, so we're talking 1914 to 15. And during the early part of the war, he's responsible for all Russian forces fighting against the Central Powers. So that's Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. Now, when we think of the First World War, most of us in the West, we think of the trenches of the Western Front. But the Eastern Front was just as important, and it was extremely bloody. I should also say it was a much more mobile affair. There were areas where it was a bit more static, but for the most part, armies were advancing to and fro a bit more than they were in the West. And under his command, I'm afraid to say the Russians did not fare very well. Yes. So this is very much a case of giant of history, but not a giant of strategy, shall we say.
It's just his height.
It's just his height, but he does have an impact on history, as I shall prove just now. So he believed that the main thrust of the fighting should be in Poland, and so he advanced his forces west. However, during the 23rd to 30th of August 1914, the Russian First and Second Armies were almost completely destroyed by the German army at the Battle of Tannenberg in northern Poland. Now, Tannenberg, I suppose, is equivalent to the Somme for the British or Verdun for the French during the First World War, only much more so. The Russians suffered casualties during that battle of between 122,000 to 170,000 men. This is in a week's fighting. They lose all those men.
That's horrific.
Oh, yes, and it gets worse after Tannenberg, but I'll talk about Tannenberg specifically at the moment. So those casualties break down to around 30,000 to 78,000 killed or wounded, with an extra 90,000 becoming prisoners. The Germans also captured around 500 Russian artillery pieces. It was actually one of their most significant victories of the war, and such was the humiliation that the commander of the Russian Second Army, a guy called General Alexander Samsonov, he committed suicide because of the humiliation. Tannenberg also weakened the Russian armed forces as a whole, both militarily and reputationally, to the extent that it never recovered for the rest of the conflict. And although he was commander-in-chief of all these forces, Grand Duke Nicholas was not actually present at Tannenberg. He the simple reason being that his forces were far too large for him to be in different places all at the same time. Now, weirdly, despite this massive defeat, it's written that Nicholas's headquarters were actually quite calm. They had a calm atmosphere. And this despite the fact that the Russians suffered hundreds of thousands of casualties, not just at Tannenberg, but at the battles of the Vistula River and Lodz. And I probably pronounced that wrong, but it's a Polish battle. I should say that not all of this is Nicholas's faults. He did try and ask the Russian government to provide more artillery and ammunition, but this simply didn't happen most of the time. And without this equipment, he simply couldn't have a coherent plan to be victorious. Having said that, he also had his own faults. He didn't have a broad strategic sense. He failed in terms of tactics, logistics, and the selection of generals. Now, despite all of these failures, he was well liked by his officers and men, and he was often visited by foreign observers, and they gave accounts of his height, which I found to be quite interesting.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. So during this time, when he's at the front, the Grand Duke was visited by an American military observer who was rather randomly accompanying a Belgian general to the Eastern Front. Writing late in the 1930s, this American described Nicholas as tall, slender, dry, and concise in his manner of talking. The Grand Duke was an impressive personality. Now, when he says tall and slender, the Duke was also known to have excellent posture and would stand ramrod straight. This is largely due to his military training, but that says a lot for us tall people who often stoop.
Oh no!
Whereas he had the pride.
Yeah. Just sat in my chair a little bit better. When anyone mentions posture, you immediately shoulders back, sit upright.
Yeah. So I think if you take anything from Grand Duke Nicholas, just stand up straight a bit more for tall listeners out there. But then he was also visited by another American, this time a journalist, in 1916, and he was profiled by a guy called Richard Washburn Child in an American magazine called Collier's The National Weekly. And he wrote about the Grand Duke. He was loved, but he was feared. Even Rasputin feared him.
Ooh.
So if you don't know who Rasputin is, he was this monk who claimed he could perform miracles, and he got in very close to the Russian imperial family and ultimately destabilized them during the 1910s. So the same article about Nicholas wrote, "The Grand Duke is an imposing figure. He appears to have the height of two men, and on the top of his lean, angular, whipcord body, there is a countenance of terrorizing power. The best opinion of him, gathered from those who have served with him, is that he is not in himself an immortal military genius. He is a great organizer and a great driver of men. His figure and face appeal to the imagination of his soldiers, with one of them saying, 'He can break a chair over a desk with more dignity of anger than any other man I ever knew.'" So what this says to me, this is an exceptionally tall man who's fearsome and is prone to outbursts of violence against furniture, seemingly.
But he has such grace when he does it.
Well, indeed. And if listeners want to go online and Google Grand Duke Nicholas, there are really interesting photographs of him in his military uniform with Tsar Nicholas II parading their troops. And the Grand Duke so obviously sticks out amongst everybody else. He is literally a towering figure. I can well imagine why he was feared. And it's fascinating to see him. And the Tsar looks puny compared to him. It's a really fascinating historical document just in itself. But we can't show that over radio. But I might put it in the Facebook group when this comes out.
Please do. And we'll maybe use some of these images on our artwork.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the American guy who wrote about the Grand Duke's height. I found a less than flattering description by a British observer called William Jesser Coop. He met Nicholas while he was still commander-in-chief, and he gave a rather damning view of him. So this is what Coop says. "The Grand Duke Nicholas is tall, strongly built, and soldierly in person, but with no indication of capacity, and certainly none of refinement in his countenance.
Oh.
It gets worse. Oh. His forehead is narrow, his glance fierce, but without penetration. His features are altogether rather coarsely and commonly moulded, and above all, there is in his manner a want of that calmness and security which we associate with the possession of supreme rank and unquestioned authority. There is something of what I must call bluster about him." So I think what this says is he may be very tall, but he's not the brightest button. If that makes sense, and he's only there because of how he's part of the Russian royal family. So I think it's quite harsh, but I think it has a much more of a ring of truth about it than maybe the American observers said about him. And also I think there's worse to come, unfortunately, with this guy.
Well, after calling
I should
his
say with Giants
features
of History.
crude.
Well, yes. Well, this is not to do with his height, actually, but I should say with Giants of History, they may be giants, but it doesn't mean they're necessarily good men.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So during July to September 1915, Nicholas commanded what became known as the Great Retreat of his forces from areas such as Galicia in Poland and Ukraine. Now, this was to prevent encirclement by German forces. He commanded 3 million men at the start of this retreat, but he lost just over 1 million casualties during this time. Now, this was a severe blow to Russian morale, as you can probably imagine. And what's more, he agreed to a scorched earth policy in these territories that resulted in Russian soldiers launching pogroms against Jews and ethnic Germans. Now, I think we associate acts of violence against Jews with the Holocaust during the 20th century in World War II, but World War I is certainly a precursor to this, and indeed there were pogroms before the First World War in the 19th century. Unfortunately, it was a trend of Russian history. Anti-Semitism was just rife. But during the Great Retreat that Nicholas presided over, 500,000 Jews and 250,000 ethnic Germans were deported to Russia, with many Jews also being massacred in the towns where Russian soldiers found them.
Awful.
So this is a very awful period of history, and one that we in the West have often forgotten about when it comes to the First World War. So, as you can imagine, these are very large failures and humiliations that Nicholas has presided over, and he's removed from his command on the 21st of August 1915 by Tsar Nicholas himself. And it's Nicholas II that makes the situation much more worse by taking personal command of the Russian army from his cousin.
Oh.
Now, yeah, so this has grave implications for Russian history. So Nicholas II commanding the Russian army meant that he was absent from domestic politics, and he presided over defeats himself. And ultimately, all of this led to not one, but two revolutions in Russia in 1917. So when we think of the Russian Revolution, it's not just one event, it's actually two. There's one that happens in February, and then there's one in October. That's the most famous one. That's the Bolshevik Revolution. But I have to say that Grand Duke Nicholas is a part. His failures are a part in the Russian Revolution kicking off. In the first place, his defeats accelerate the process. But the Grand Duke himself is transferred to command Russian forces in the Caucasus, so that is near the Caspian Sea, etc. And when the February Revolution breaks out in 1917, one of Nicholas II's last official acts before he abdicated was to reappoint his cousin as Supreme Commander-in-Chief. But his appointment, unsurprisingly, was cancelled within 24 hours by the Russian Prime Minister.
Okay.
So he's clearly useless. Now, surprisingly, after the revolution, many Romanov family members are killed. That includes the Tsar and his immediate family. But Grand Duke Nicholas manages to survive the upheavals, and he spends 2 years in the Crimea before escaping in 1919 aboard a British battleship. Now, curiously, there's a curious twist of fate. In 1922, Grand Duke Nicholas was actually proclaimed as Russian Emperor by white forces in the Far East in August 1922. Now, I should say by 1922, Russia is in the midst of a bloody civil war between red Bolshevik forces and white pro-monarchist forces.
Yeah.
But because the Grand Duke was already living abroad, this proclamation was not taken seriously. So you could argue, if you wanted, that the very tall Grand Duke Nicholas was the last Tsar of Russia. You could argue that, but most historians would dismiss it. And to end this rather sorry tale, Nicholas ultimately settles in France, and he becomes the figurehead of the anti-Soviet Russian monarchist movement before dying of natural causes, age 72, on the French Riviera. So despite all of his failures, he manages to die in peace in rather nice surroundings.
Yeah.
So I think this is our first giant of history where we have a guy who has an impact on history, but he's also a colossal failure, which is probably why you haven't heard of him. But there we go.
No, I thought all of the Russian family were wiped out in the assassinations.
Yes, a lot of them were, but a lot of them weren't, and Grand Duke Nicholas was among the survivors. So I guess to conclude this sorry tale, Nicholas ultimately settled in France, and he became the figurehead of the anti-Soviet Russian monarchist movement before dying of natural causes, age 72, on the French Riviera. So I think despite his failures, he managed to die in some comfort and managed to survive the Russian Revolution. But this is a guy who's an example of how someone can mess up and really affect history in a negative way. But it's probably why you haven't heard of him, because it's just a string of disasters after another.
Yeah.
But he's a fascinating figure nonetheless. Yeah. And I was surprised to come across him. So there you go. Grand Duke Nicholas Nikolaevich of Russia. Well done, mate.
Thank you, Tom, for that lovely and very informative Giants of History. Well, with that, we'll say bye-bye. Thank you to all our listeners for joining us for yet another Tall Talk Times podcast, a podcast made by beautifully tall people.
For beautifully tall people. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye, guys.